Hello, everyone. I am Liliana Śmiech, Director of Public Relations of Warsaw Institute, and this is my pleasure to welcome you to Warsaw Institute event. We are honored today to host Jakub Wiech, Deputy Editor-in-Chief of Energetyka 24. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, hello.
Well, the European Commission has identified natural gas and nuclear power as transitional and sustainable fuels. We can say that the recognition of gas as transitional fuel is somehow a nod to Germany. Shouldn't we consider the recognition of gas as green as a threat to the EU Fit for 55 objectives?
Well, for some extent, for sure, because natural gas is a fossil fuel that generates emissions during its usage in the electric system. So, of course, this is some kind of a threat towards this aims, these goals that we set up discussing our energy transition targets and while discussing the European energy transition. However, this is, of course, something that is not only a nod towards Germany, but also towards countries like Poland, that relies very heavily on high emission energy sources like coal. And for them, switching towards natural gas, switching towards gas-fired power plants is a way to escape from the more emissionary fuels such as like coal or lignite, and this is actually a way to lower their emission. However, of course, we have to acknowledge that this statement made by the European Commission is some kind of opening of the discussion. It actually means that Commission proposes these sources to be put in the taxonomy, which is a very specific document, because right now there is no obligation inside the European Union, in the European framework, legal framework, to, for example, to force European economic entities to act accordingly to the taxonomy. So there is no such a obligation. There is no such a rule that makes the actions that are not included in the taxonomy illegal in the terms of European legal framework. It may happen in a moment, in a few years, that this regulation will be imposed. But right now, this is some kind of a benchmark for example, financial entities, to a level where the financial border should be ruled out. So this is an important step to finish the internal European discussion among the pro-nuclear and pro-gas countries. That was quite a break in the unity of European energy policy. But of course, this is just the beginning of the whole process. It may be stopped by European Parliament, for example, which is quite radical in its ecological optics. So we will see what will happen today. But right now, the Commission stands on the ground that nuclear and gas should be included in the European taxonomy.
Sure. I think that also the news that nuclear energy has been declared sustainable is good news for Poland. We have received 3 bids to build nuclear power plants, like from United States, France, and South Korea. And the Korean bid is probably the cheapest and can be constructed very quickly. However, the geopolitics is a bit different. So my question is, what factors should be a key in the choice of nuclear technology?
Right, for sure. These all offerings that made their offers in the Polish nuclear programs represent the very cutting edge level of technology. It's a very well developed technology of the 3 plus generation, and there are these reactors, this reactor technology coming from the US, from France, from South Korea, is a very safe and very reliable technology that guarantees that these units will serve us for decades, for even 80 years or more. So the technological issues are not on the first line, whether we are discussing from which country we should take our nuclear technology. We are focusing on the geopolitical sphere of that problem, and right now we are discussing actually two options as an alternative, whether we should take it from United States, from the Westinghouse Electric Company, or from France, from EDF, Électricité de France. And this is actually the question to what center of power we should look in creating our foreign policy. If we should look on France and European politics and building up our position inside European Union, or if we should look through the Atlantic Ocean and bind United States with us and create some ties in the transatlantic platform. So as far as I'm concerned, from my best knowledge, it stems that Poland is more faced towards cooperating with the United States. We are now looking for the offer that will be made by Americans in the second half of this year. So then we will see the exact proposal for the Polish energy program. Of course, there is still a huge negotiation thing going on with French. So this is also an option here. I'm afraid that South Korea is not being counted so much due to the fact that geopolitical interests of that country are not as much visible in Europe as the French or American ones. But of course, we cannot exclude the option that two countries will be involved in our nuclear energy program. For example, I can imagine the situation where Americans are delivering the nuclear technology in terms of reactor technology, and the Koreans are manufacturing some other parts or helping in the engineering that will be needed to success with this whole program. So yeah, many options are on the table, and but what is important to be stressed that this is more a geopolitical decision, not the technical or energy one. This is strictly geopolitical decision right now.
Okay, and what is your personal opinion? Should we buy the technology from US or France?
Well, I focus actually on the more technical way, and so this is actually for me something that can be solved in the way of critical tandem. For example, I appreciate very much the Korean skill in completing nuclear programs in time, in budget, in the schedule. Of course, so this is something that is quite impressing right now when many investments of that type deal with some delays. So I imagine that there is a chance for some kind of a nuclear tandem, and for example, engaging Americans and South Koreans to create
Okay.
a common project to help it be manufactured and succeeded in time in schedule. But of course, this is something that government will decide. However, I think that there is an option for that. I see the room for cooperation of two entities in the Polish nuclear program.
Sure. And what should Poland do in the meantime? I mean, should we drive renewables, windmills, solar power plants? Because we can see that the recent crisis in the autumn showed that there is a hole when there's no backup. So if there's no wind, also the gas prices went up, and we were completely dependent on Putin's mercy. So how can we reduce these kinds of risk? And maybe, as long as we don't have nuclear, because these are the long-term plans, shouldn't we leave coal after all?
Well, Poland is quite unique in its energy issues because due to the fact that we have the strongest reliance on coal among any other European country, we do have to solve it in a quite specific way. We cannot just switch off our coal-fired power plants day by day. It's technically impossible. We have to do it more evolutionary way. I think that right now, in the next several years, we will be investing a lot of money in gas-fired power plants and renewables, and this will be the mix of the Polish 30s to rely on that sources more and to quit with from coal to some extent. We do have some schedules for switching off several fired power plants in Poland. We do have, for example, the plans for the Bełchatów power plant, which is the biggest capacity in Europe and one of the biggest in the world in terms of generating energy. There are some indicators of the change that is going to happen. However, we know for sure that our current energy transition plan is getting more and more well, let's say it's not actual anymore. It's not covering the real state of reality. We need to go with some more ambitious way of handling with the energy transition. But of course, due to the fact that we do have some severe technological obstacles, that we do have some very important problems with our energy system in terms of capacities, in terms of electric grid. That thing cannot be changed day by day. We will, in the next several years, we will see in Poland a huge struggle with quitting from coal, with introducing new capacities, with trying to connect stable power plants with not stable renewables. So this is a huge challenge actually for whole society, for economy, for system operators, for energy entities. But well, this is something that was put aside for a long time, and we are now paying for our own delays and for our own neglectance. So I understand that European Union has its own climate ambitions, and we see it very clearly in the Fit for 55 package that European countries should be quite united in the field of climate work, and Brussels sees that this way. However, we Poland are the one that stays behind. So we need to really catch up with the rest of Europe, but it also creates some space for some just mechanism, for just transition, for helping us with this huge challenge, because there is no interest in making a failure in terms of energy system or economy in Poland for the European Union. We should be united also on this level. So I hope that the just mechanism that are also included in Fit for 55 package will be engaged here and will be expanded, for example, by the pressure of the Polish government and its allies in the European policy sphere.
Yeah, and also what European Union wants to do by 2050, EU intends to spend up to 500 billion euros on hydrogen. And we know that hydrogen is the most common element in the universe, but obtaining it is not cheap at all, as we know. Also, the characteristics of hydrogen are widely known. We know that hydrogen causes metal brightness, explosive combustion with flashback effect. It also causes penetration of walls and pipelines, and so on and so on. These are just some of the negative aspects of hydrogen use. And I also have personal impression that the queue for subsidies from the states or the EU is growing, because after all, the results of hydrogen application programs are not important, but the most important thing is the easy money to be made because of the subsidies. And my question is, do you see any future in hydrogen?
Well, to start with the money, I agree with you. There is a huge amount of money put in the hydrogen business. There is a huge demand on developing this technology towards filling the gap that has been created by the lack of proper energy storage technology. Actually, when I hear about hydrogen in the European Union, I hear about something that is considered to be some kind of a magic energy storage and also a fuel that will solve all these problems that has been generated by the 100% of renewables target, or the vision of 100% renewable energy system. And this actually brought to mind the Deus ex machina term, because I think that there is too much hope put in the hydrogen as a technology, because we do have some significant problems with developing this technology. As you mentioned, generating of these emission-free hydrogen, so-called green hydrogen or purple hydrogen, is not that simple as European Union wanted it to be. Because to do so, we have to first of all invest in electrolyzers, which are quite expensive, and also sophisticated utilities. So it's not that simple to build enough capacities to generate a lot of clean hydrogen. And this whole process, this energizing of water to create hydrogen, is quite expensive one. It requires a lot of energy, and this energy has to be made by emission-free energy sources, and the whole infrastructure here is quite expensive. And once generated, there is a problem with transferring the hydrogen from one place to another, because, as you also mentioned, this is the smallest element in the known element system. So the atomic number of hydrogen is one. There is no smaller element from that creates problem with putting it, for example, in the pipeline system, because there is a chance that it will escape from that, and not much of this fuel can be sent right now. There is still an unanswered question whether we can use the existing pipeline system to transfer the hydrogen from utilities to the consumers. And the experiments are being undertaken right now to prove if we can use to some extent even the gas grid to do so. But this is something that will take a lot of time and a lot of money. And the European Union sees the hydrogen as something that will come up very soon, and it will solve all the system problems that cannot be solved by other technologies that are undeveloped, or even that are blocked by the laws of physics. So I think that right now this is something of I would call fashionable technology. It's something that really has its 5 minutes. It's generates a lot of attention, a lot of media coverage. However, the real possibilities of engaging hydrogen in solving our energy issues right now are very limited. So there is no way to engage us to the extent that is needed by our energy system to go quickly towards climate neutrality. I hope that this fuel will be developed to the level that it will help us to do so. We cannot just exclude some technology from the huge challenge that is the energy transition towards climate neutrality. However, we also have to know the limits of the technologies that we are going to engage. We have to know the limitations of our own possibilities in terms of the technological development. So I think that, yeah, hydrogen might be the fuel of the future, but maybe not so close future that we all think it will be.
Yeah, well, I think also the problem is that we are in the same place with researching hydrogen since almost 200 years. So I'm not sure whether another 200 years will help us with it. So yeah, we're
Yeah.
having a question from the viewer. How would you sum up the Turov agreement? Is it a success or failure? Is it a win-win result?
Well, well, in short term, this is a huge success because we have escaped from a danger that was created by the ruling of the European Court of Justice. And as analyzing the opinion of the officials from the Court of Justice, we could assume that this ruling will be devastating for us. So, in that terms, this is a success. However, while analyzing it in the broader terms, in the perspective of the whole conflict regarding the Turów mine, this is a huge failure because this is something that should be easily avoided by coming with negotiations, by coming with talks held on the regional level between, for example, the Liberecki region and utility PGE, and we should solve it many years ago by just listening to our Czech neighbors, by solving the dispute using the possible tools, and there were many tools to solve that dispute, that issue. So we provoked the Czechs to bring this case to the European Court of Justice, and everything that happened after that, everything that happened in the last year, well, when the Court of Justice ruled to hold the production in the Turów mine, to actually stop a huge amount of generation of electricity in our energy system, put us in the lack or in the possible danger for the energy security of Poland. Well, that was created on the ground of our own negligence, of our own disrespect towards the Czech. But of course, just by looking closely on the rulings made by the Court of Justice, that specific rulings were too broad in their extent, I think, because that was a very dangerous precedent by the court to actually make impact on the of the member state. This is something that should be very commonly avoided by any European institution, to make this kind of interaction with the country member states energy security, especially during the time of energy crisis that hit Europe last year. So I well, we can just divide this whole dispute over Turów to some three parts, and in the first part, starting in 2016 and going toward 2021, Poland had made several a huge of neglectance that led Czechs to bring the case to the European Court of Justice. However, starting from the first ruling to signing the deals, or rather to the Czech elections, we saw that the Czech government by Prime Minister Babiš was acting in a, well, they were presenting a bad will. They did not want to negotiate with Poles. They did not want to sign the agreements. They just they were keeping with coming up with new and broader demands towards the Polish side. So that had nothing to do with good neighborship relations, but it was something like showing off towards the Polish side that the Czech side is in charge in that dispute. Everything has changed when the new Czech government was elected, and new government by Petr Fiala is much more friendly towards the Polish, and we saw that the negotiations with that government lasted for like 2 rounds or something, while the previous one took us 17 rounds to come up with nothing. And right now we have this agreement. The agreement itself is well. It of course agrees on what the Czech were saying to the whole dispute. So this is something that could be predicted, and many of the points of the agreement should be realized by the Polish side anyway, despite of the dispute. So that were for example, investments that were necessary to keep the mine working. So we would have done this anyway. But of course, yeah, that was something that was not necessary. That was something that could be easily avoided, and the costs of this whole dispute to Poland is quite significant in terms of financial and also political and this whole soft power thing. We have lost a lot and earned actually nothing. Well, maybe except for a chance for a new opening with the Czech neighbor. I hope that we'll use this change to just establish some new relations that will be productive, and that will be coming off with mutual respect.
I think this answer was sufficient, and our viewer is very happy with the answer. And last but not least, in Poland, electric cars leave a bigger carbon footprint than the combustion cars. And what do you think? What are the chances for electric cars in Polish motorization? And what do you think? Like, if not electrics, then what?
Well, actually, I've seen this research that was that was brought to the article by one of the websites that shown the results that the Polish electric vehicles are generating more carbon trace than electric vehicles in other European countries. However, I did not actually analyzed the mere research, the scientific article. So I just cannot say whether it's correct or not. I didn't analyze it still. Just avoiding this if it's true or not. I would like to put a stress on the fact that battery electric vehicles. So the electric vehicles that take the energy from the installed battery have their own limitations. For example, they are losing the capacity of the battery during cold days, during the days with minus degrees. So this is actually something that limits the possibility to treat these solutions as an alternative towards the combustion cars, combustion engines, and the transportation that we are familiar with today. Actually, in Energetica 24, which is the portal that I work with as a deputy editor-in-chief, we have tested the electric BMW recently, and it has its own limitations. This is quite an expensive car, and still it could not solve the problem of battery to have its own capacity big enough to make sure that I will be able to travel from one distant country, one distant city in Poland to another. And this distance is very easy to be made with the combustion engine. While with the electric vehicle, I had to spend like an hour on the fuel station to have my vehicle charged. This is something that can actually be a huge problem for users of these vehicles. But I see the alternative in the hydrogen cars, because the hydrogen cell is free from the physical limitations of battery, because for example, temperature does not have an effect on the generation of electricity from hydrogen cell. They are quite long distance cars. They have more. They are able to go with more distance than the battery charged electric vehicle. So I think that the future of personal transportation of compact cars is with will be developed with the fuel cells, with the hydrogen cells. So this is something that can change the image of transportation. And we have to remember that the hydrogen cell, the hydrogen vehicles are also electric vehicles, because hydrogen cell generates electricity. So this is also electric vehicle, and this is something that can be used broadly to solve the problem with emissions coming from the transportation.
But is there any regulation towards hydrogen vehicles in Poland yet, or not?
There are some vehicles actually going on riding on our streets, but there is no sufficient infrastructure. There are almost, I think that there is only one fuel station for hydrogen vehicles in Poland, and this is of course not enough to make the transportation possible. Transportation, of course, with the usage of hydrogen, but this is something to be developed quite soon, I believe. And the hydrogen vehicles are still even more expensive than the battery electric vehicles. So there is actually a lot of things that should be solved in this sphere of transportation. We have to come with solutions to make them cheaper, to make them more available, to make them easier to use, to make the infrastructure that have to go with the development of this kind of transportation more available, more developed in the whole Europe. So only by solving these issues we'll be able to create a real alternative from the combustion fueled cars.
And what about public transportation? Can it also help in solving the problem with emission?
Yeah, sure, for sure. I mean, we forgot that there is a huge electric vehicle riding actually in the whole Poland. This is electric trains. Trains are traveling mostly by the electricity, by electric engines. So this is a solution that is actually working on, and we should make a lot of effort to, for example, limit the transport made by the trucks, right? The huge vehicles that generates a lot of emission, and to switch this transportation from this ways of cars, from this way of transporting, towards trains, to the railroads, because this is something that can be done quite easily. We have the needed infrastructure, we have the needed tools. We just need to create some kind of a regulation that will make it profitable for the speditors to go with that way. I think that using electric trains to solve the some part of the problems with transportation is quite necessary to do to make sure that we will be able to reach the climate neutrality.
Yeah, very well said, Jakub. My thanks to our guest for joining us today. The event will be available on our Facebook, YouTube channel, and at warsawinstitute.org. So to be sure to share today's event with those who might be interested. Thank you so much for joining us today, and well, see you next
Thank you.
time.
See you soon.
Thank you.